Okay, so the first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna cut out your actual rice bag. So 2 rectangles that are gonna be 6.5 inches by 12.5 inches. You wanna make sure that they're as even as possible, and it will make it a lot easier to sew. Now we're going to cut out the pieces for your cover. The large rectangle is 13 inches by 7 inches, and the smaller rectangles are 8 inches by 7 inches. I like to just cut a strip and then I can cut off of that. Just depends on how big your fabric is. The plaid is nice to use because it's easy to follow those lines. Now, when you pick out your fabric, make sure that you pick out something that is 100% cotton, or you will have problems when you put it in the microwave and it could melt. I like to use my rotary cutter. It makes it a lot easier and quicker to do this. So you can see how there's a little edge. It's going to be a little bit bigger, your cover, so it will fit right in there. You're going to sew all the way around the edge of those 2 pieces of fabric. They're sandwiched together. You can use pins if you'd like. You're going to use a 1/4 inch inseam and a straight stitch. When you get to the corners, if you put your needle down, it's a lot easier to turn. You will need a space that's left open at the end of the rice bag so that you are able to fit the end of whatever size funnel you have in there to fill it with rice. You can use pins if you need something to remind you. Back stitch right here. See how that funnel will fit? So I have this little 1-inch space that will fit my funnel perfectly. I switch out the feet on my machine when I use an overlock stitch to a straight stitch. Not all machines are that way. If you don't have overlock stitch on your machine, it's okay. Just use a zigzag stitch. It will still help it from unraveling. I just feel like overlocking or zigzag stitching after you put a straight stitch there keeps it looking very nice and keeps it from unraveling or losing pieces of rice. Now you're going to turn it right side out. I put my thumb in there, work down to the opposite corner. I see a few threads I missed. Snip any of those. I pull that corner through. Be careful not to tear your seam. Grab a chopstick. Work those corners out. Be careful you don't push a hole through your fabric. Okay, now I flatten that out. I've got 4 cups of rice. I've got my funnel. I'm going to use that funnel to funnel the rice down into the bag. You might have to shake it a little depending on how big the end of your funnel is. Just work all of that rice down in there. Okay, now I'm going to tuck my edge in so that I can sew that up. You'll have a little bit of a seam there. I'm going to go back to my straight stitch and then back over to finish it up with the overlock stitch. So that already has the straight stitch in there. Then I overlock stitch it, or like I said, you can zigzag. You don't want to lose any rice out of there. Cut your threads, and there you go. There's your rice bag. Now we're going to work on the cover. These are the pieces and how they'll lay out. And so I like to use some of this starch spray, and it keeps my fabric in place when I am sewing. You're just going to iron it. We're going to iron hems on the smaller rectangles, about 1/4 of an inch. Roll it once, iron it, then you're going to roll it a second time. And iron that. It helps to use a little starch spray. Now you're going to pin your edges. You'll have 2 of those. You're going to straight stitch. Putting my sewing plate back on. You're going to sew a straight stitch down the hem to keep it in place. Make sure that you remove your pins before you get to them, or it could throw off the tension in your machine. So you'll have 2 of these pieces done. Now you're going to place these pieces right sides together. So essentially you're pinning it inside out. The hems on the rice bag will overlap each other. The outside of your rice bag will all be raw edges. Now you're going to straight stitch a 1/4 inch inseam all the way around, just like the rice bag, except this time you do not need to leave a space because we're not filling it with rice. I am taking off any uneven edges before I do my overlock stitch. Now I'm changing the foot on my machine, and I'm going to do my overlock stitch. And again, you can use a zigzag stitch, no problem. This just keeps your fabric from unraveling when you wash it. Remove any extra threads. Now you're going to turn your cover right side out. You can use a chopstick. This is a lot easier than your rice bag. There you go. There's your cover. Okay, you're going to take all the rice and put it to the bottom of the bag. And you're going to work the empty side in to your cover. And then you're going to work the rice down into that. And then you can take the empty top and work that into the top of your cover. This is the easiest way to get your rice bag into your cover. Work it in there. There you go. Make sure your microwave is clean, or use a plate. Warm your rice bag up for no longer than 2 minutes. Depending on the wattage, you may want to use less time. It can burn the rice and it stinks. If you have any questions, comment down below.